got this interesting question on my video the other day about why I didn't like the ANR theory to the end of Attack on Titan. And I thought, hey, why not be one of the first to openly have a controversial opinion on ANR? Because those who love it, and the rest who actively avoid anything AOT spoiler related probably have never ventured into the Reddit threads or YouTube rabbit holes where this theory took root. First of all, this is my own opinion about ANR. You have every right to feel differently and make your own videos and analyses on why you disagree. I know this is gonna anger a lot of the ANR stands out there just on principle alone, so do me a favor, if you're gonna start spamming, please at least watch to the end of the video first. Also, a very important note, talking about this ANR theory should not be confused with the AOT no Requiem fan work. This is the theory as it was presented back in December of 2020 through plaintext Reddit threads and commenter format before the series ended. I repeat, I am not talking about the AOT no Requiem work that just released its part 1. I will talk about my thoughts on that once the entire thing is out for full context, because I think people are either jumping on the loving it or hating it side way too early, especially when it's starting its rewrite from chapter 137. First things first, what is the ANR theory? ANR stands for Akatsuki no Requiem and is based off of the song by Linked Horizon. The fan theory puts more emphasis on Eren being put in the impossible situation where he must massacre the world in order to save his home, but he does all of this in mind with the idea that his freedom and the freedom of the ones on parody is prioritized above all else. The Alliance, who largely consist of his friends, will die fighting him in pursuit of their beliefs, but such is the cost of survival. By the end, the Rumbling is successful in killing all of his enemies, and at last, the island is free. But just because Eren has quote-unquote won, doesn't mean that he and the island aren't plagued with hurt. The fact that he had to kill his friends to achieve it feels too high, and it's melancholic all around, especially since not everyone on the island believed what he did was right. In another iteration of this theory, Eren is also the father of Historia's child, and the baby is one of the first that is born into this free world. This child and the life it may lead is the only shred of happiness he has amongst all of his regrets. So first I want to say, I understand why this theory became one of the most popular ones, especially in the Reddit and theorizing crowd. The tone of ANR is dark and really horrifying, which has been true to the tone of Attack on Titan. Killing the Alliance, the people who are fighting for the sake of humanity, who we as the audience know are the ones who are morally right, would have been the biggest gut punch any of us ever received. It would have hurt worse than ERWIN, Hanji, Hannes, and the entire Levi squad deaths. And Isayama has basically been subjecting us to this kind of hurt since the beginning of the series, so it's very natural to think that the ending would take that to the nth degree. Here's where I would point out my 3 main problems of ANR. Number 1, narrative problems. One of the biggest proponents of ANR that I've seen is that it makes the most narrative sense for Eren to succeed. That would be true if we were still viewing Attack on Titan mainly through Eren's perspective, but that is no longer the case after the time skip. After the 4-year time skip, we are no longer experiencing Attack on Titan through Eren's eyes. We've always been kept at a distance with him, and we've seen the story more through Armin, Mikasa, and on the other side of the ocean, Reiner. And at times, Gabi even becomes a main point of view character. GABI! Most of everything post-time skip is Eren's friends and comrades trying to understand what he's up to.
何しに来たんですか?
何って話しに来たんだよ。でも君がなぜ単独行動に出てこの島を危機に追い込んだのかがわからない。
そして突然ジークの計画に乗ったエレン。ジークと接触して何を話したのか。真相は本人たちにしかわからない。
エレンと話そう。僕とミカサと3人だけでエレンの真意を確かめるんだ。
一番大事だったはずの2人を意味もなく傷つけちまうほどもう我を失っちまった。
奴が正気だとしたら何の意味もなくそんなことをするとは思えない。何かそこに奴の真意があるんじゃないのか。
No one actually knows what's going inside Eren's head besides that he's making plans on his own without consulting anyone else. Once the rumbling starts, you only get Eren's POV in chapters 123, 131, and the end with 139. Isayama was already distancing us from him at the start, and I thought this was actually one of the smartest things he's ever done. It's no secret that turning a character dark side is probably one of the most difficult things you could ever do. It's so much easier to do redemption arcs than to do protagonist turned antagonist. You have to make sure that the motivation is airtight and rock solid, as well as the turns being completely believable. That's why these 4 years where Eren learned more about the world outside, understood that there were good people too, and watched as he saw the people in power talk about the island were so important. So the moment that Eren activated the rumbling, we understood that he wasn't just acting petty or hadn't considered that not everyone across the ocean was his enemy. He knew all of that and still chose to take it on. But we are still witnessing all of this through the Alliance's point of view. The moment that Isayama kept the lens on them instead of Eren was when ANR should have died at the root. Keep in mind the tone that we talked about earlier. Even though the series feels like an endless tragedy, AOT has always been about hope and humanity. In the Clash of Titans arc, the Scouts lost so many people in trying to retrieve Eren, but they managed to save him and got another piece of the puzzle. In the Uprising arc, they were being slaughtered left and right by the military police, and the Survey Corps was almost completely dismantled. But they managed to expose the fake king and put the rightful heir on the throne. They gave up this fake peace in favor of truth. And in the return of Shinganshina, I think we all know the impacts of this battle was devastating to the scouts. They lost their commander, nearly everyone in the Survey Corps, and it was only by the skin of their teeth that they managed to win and reclaim the wall. All of these arcs illustrate the hope and strength of humanity to fight in the face of overwhelming odds. That's where the Alliance stood when the rumbling began. Stopping Eren was the impossible feat. Eren stopping the Alliance would have been as easy as smashing a bug. And since we're following this through the eyes of the Alliance, Eren coming in and killing everybody would have been irredeemably hopeless. So many characters would die without meaning, and narratively speaking, that would have been way more unsatisfying than the original ending we got. The only way ANR makes narrative sense is if you've been following Eren's point of view from the start throughout the entire rumbling arc. In that sense, you are tracking Eren to be the main protagonist, and it would make sense for him to succeed even if it were at a terrible cost. But no, we're not viewing the story through Eren's eyes anymore. We haven't been for a very long time. We're following Mikasa's conflict for her to come to terms with killing the man she loves. We're following Armin's struggle for living true to his ideals at the cost of his friend's life and the people back home. We're following Reiner's struggle to do the right thing with zero gas left in the tank. You can't just discount all of these stories in favor of Eren's. If the events of ANR were to happen post 122, it would have been one of the most hacked up narratives we would have probably ever experienced. None of these characters would have had any meaningful end, and it would have been highly dissatisfying as a result. Eren choosing his path to massacre the world and dying for it is as poetic and as fitting as it possibly could be. He chased freedom, and this was his price of that choice. So unless we followed Eren's POV from the moment the rumbling started and stayed on him only, ANR would have been a narrative mess. Number 2, Isayama had set Eren up to die. Another argument I see being brought up a lot in favor of ANR is that it's the most realistic outcome for Eren's power set. I don't really want to touch this line of reasoning with a 10-foot pole because then I would have to ask, in whose terms of realism are we going by? Wouldn't it be realistic that the nobles took time to confirm that the walls had been breached, therefore sealing Erwin's fate to be executed? Wouldn't it be realistic that with the combined powers of the Beast, Colossal, Armored, and Cart Titan that they would be able to win the Battle of Shiganshina if the Cart Titan had just went up and snatched Eren's ass right here? Because we're already suspending our disbelief on giant man-eating titans, but what seems to be going too far is millions of giant men all being controlled by 2 dudes, and if those 2 guys get zooked, it'd be over for them. I don't know, but for me, that seems pretty in line with how the rumbling was presented. I keep hearing that ANR is the most realistic route because Eren's powers with the founding titan is unmatched, but I really don't know what else to say about that supposed realism argument because yes, Eren does have the power to affect all Eldians, take away titan powers, etc., but that doesn't mean he can't be stopped. Of course, Isayama is going to create insane odds for the Alliance to go up against. That's the nature of trying to create the ultimate finale for your series. It's all about how he decides to write the final battle, which determines the outcome. And that's also why he chose to give Eren limits by saying that he couldn't take powers away unwillingly or stop anyone from following him because he believes everyone has the freedom to choose. Isayama had put it front and center in chapter 122 that Eren was the final enemy. And just by looking at this image tell you that the entire goal of the story is now to stop him? He said this time and time again that Eren couldn't be talked down. Even though it hurts like hell and the Alliance struggles with it all the way to the very end, it's pretty much understood that the only way forward is to forcibly stop him. If that isn't slating Eren to die, I don't know what is. And also this panel with Reiner is just blatantly saying it out loud. Personally, I wasn't a big fan of this because I thought it was too on the nose, but the setup for Eren's death was there. If people wanted him to live by means of ANR, you're asking for something Isayama never intended all the way back from chapter 123, which is 12% of the entire manga. That's more than 1/10, guys. That's kind of a lot. Going that far back might be akin to asking for an AU where Erwin gets the Titan injection instead of Armin. It could be a cool story, but it wouldn't be this story that Isayama is trying to tell with the Alliance triumphing and Eren dying. So to me, all the way from 123, it wasn't a question of whether Eren was going to die, it was how. Number 3, the moral dilemma. As with every ending, you as a writer want to ask yourself, what do you want to explore in your writing as well as what you hope the audience will take away from your story as a whole? While Isayama never outwardly said this equals this, he has explored so many ideas and themes in Attack on Titan that the finale is arguably one of the most important ones he has to nail. And whether a writer intends to or not, the message of the ending will end up being a reflection of them. But let me clarify, writers can write unsavory characters or horrifying actions without actually condoning them, but they have to be executed with the writer's sensibilities in mind because we as readers can tell intent based on the concepts as they are portrayed. Like if anyone said Isayama was glorifying violence, we'd know they're full of shit. But ANR as it was presented does not even really serve as a cautionary tale. If Eren wins, the only ones alive are the ones that are most thankful to his sacrifice, so for the most part they would be grateful. Eren is the one who would have to suffer the greatest, having to live with the guilt of killing all these people, but his moral quandary seems so small compared to the framework of what he set out to accomplish. So if you write about a successful worldwide massacre, even with all the justification in the world, you have to know that that's the lasting impact you're leaving your audience with. Whether you intend to or not, you are endorsing it as an answer, which to me should not be the case. As much as everyone is trying to kill you, the moment you kill innocent people unrelated to the conflict, you're in the wrong. I know this may seem high and mighty of me, speaking as someone who luckily hasn't experienced anything close to this level of violence, but it is a value I hold for myself because any form of justification feels wrong. ANR can never serve to be a cautionary tale because Eren never receives any consequences of impact. You could say that his punishment is holding the burden of killing everyone, but holding that burden doesn't come anywhere close to offsetting the lives and sheer numbers that he killed in the process. While I would like to think that the genocide in ANR isn't being glorified, it's not really being condemned either. The best underlying message of ANR is that if you threaten my existence to live just on the basis of being born, I have every right to fight back. But like I said, that goes away the moment you make the first move in massacring innocent people to achieve that. So just on principle, if ANR is the final conclusion to Attack on Titan, I honestly don't know if I would revisit it. The execution could be flawless, but the underlying message that I'm left with is not one of hope for the future, even if you do show me this child being born free. It was only achieved through the blood and graves of everyone else, so no matter what, I can't accept that as being the only answer. Now you could argue that what I feel morally does not have to reflect in the story. That's the reason why we read about villains and stuff, right? You are right, but not always. It's the difference between me dropping everything to see what Tywin Lannister comes up with, and on the other side, you can't even pay me to watch Saw movies. But with the villain argument, let's take Breaking Bad for example. It's a wonderfully crafted show exploring the character evolution of Walter White from meek high school teacher to hardened drug kingpin. Spoilers for Breaking Bad, so if you want to skip ahead, go to this timestamp. The reason why Breaking Bad's finale works so well in so many ways is because Walt achieved a lot of what he set out to do. He wasn't able to set up his family with all the money that he wanted, but what he did leave his family was good enough for the circumstances that they were in. But in the end, succumbed to his wounds and died. If Walt had lived with everything that had transpired, would the end be that satisfying? After getting his brother-in-law killed and putting his family in such a horrible situation by association with his name, should he get to live? Most answers betting on no. Same goes for Eren. As much as you might like him as a character, does him surviving feel fitting? It doesn't matter how compelling a protagonist he is, his actions warrant consequences. Because while ANR may depict him living a tortured, hollow life, it will still be seen as him committing mass genocide and still getting to see his child grow up and his homeland flourish. Even if he's hounded with pain and regret, there are moments of brightness that he could see in his child and his home, which justifies it. And I'm sorry, but he doesn't deserve that. Considering everything Eren's done, the most I can give him is this fan epilogue similar to what Hanji got.
Two stakes, you're the only thing I know.
So for me, the original 139, despite its flaws, ranks higher than ANR. I still hate the Dina Titan, the fact that Jean and Connie getting Titanized was a fake out, and I'd say throw the whole Ymir and King Fritz thing away. But other than that, with Eren's death, the Alliance set up as heroes that came together despite all odds, and Armin's answer to the cycle of hatred, it works. But if you've seen the video I did on the leaks, I do rank ANR higher than the 8 extra pages. I'll give the ANR theory credit where at least Eren accomplishes his goal in saving parity. If the island was going to be bombed to hell, ANR does become justified in its underlying message that if someone does threaten you for simply existing, you have every justification to fight back. So just to recap, the 3 main reasons why I can't give ANR a pass are because 1, the narrative would not be fulfilling to any of the characters that we have been following, 2, the setup of Eren's death was always there, and 3, for moral reasons that this should not be the final message of the story. And as a bonus, thematically, it doesn't feel very fitting, at least to me. Thank you for watching to the end of this video. Please hit the like button and leave a comment on what you think. This is a touchy subject for sure, considering the advocates for ANR are really intense. But I also really think it's important to put out this POV because I think once you hit chapter 132, you really can't be hoping for an ANR ending and have it be satisfying. And it was also Isayama's decision to show these events through the Alliance, which I genuinely think is the best choice. Even though it was Eren's story in seasons 1 through 3, season 4 and onward has expanded and he no longer is our main protagonist. But who knows, maybe the AOT no Requiem fan work that comes out will prove me wrong, but I won't be able to give a full analysis on that until all 3 parts are out, because I think it'd be unfair to judge it prematurely.
If you feel lonely, I could be